Thank you. I'll just stand here so I can have a place to put my computer. So, my name is Jeanette Rodriguez. I am the chair of the Community Advisory Council for the Consent Decree. And I've been there since the beginning. So this is year 4 decree. And thank you, Councilmember Medina, for the opportunity for me to be here tonight. And they gave me a PowerPoint, but I wanted even many of you guys don't even know what the consent decree is. Do you know what the consent decree is? So the consent decree is an agreement between the city of Aurora and the Attorney General's office that the city of Aurora entered into voluntarily after the Attorney General's office did an investigation. After the death of Elijah McClain in 2019, there were concerns from the community, and the Attorney General's office did their own independent investigation. After their investigation, they determined that APD and AFR had engaged in a pattern and practice, is the legal language, pattern and practice that violated people's rights. And so the city entered into a voluntarily agreement in order to make reforms. They did not accept any guilt. They entered into this agreement saying, yes, we agree that we will reform and make changes. And so that began what is called the consent decree. The consent decree, now we're at the very end of it, and we're year 4 out of the 5-year consent decree. The first year, they formed what's called the Community Advisory Council, which I chair, and that Community Advisory Council was formed by the independent monitor. And a lot of people have had questions all along because they don't understand what our role is. Our role is to just listen to the community and tell the independent monitor what we are hearing. That is it. We're not advocacy. We're just that conduit between the community that provides that voice, the community, and the independent monitor. The independent monitor was chosen, which is IntegraSure, after a competitive search, and they chose IntegraSure to be the ones that oversee the changes that Aurora PD and Aurora Fire and the Civil Service Commission were supposed to make, and so which is part of the consent decree. So here we are, year 4. The first year they were looking at different, and we can just go through them. If I don't know who. Yeah, sure. There you go. Thank you. So we're now at year 4. The first year we were just looking at all the policies. They went through all of the way that they did the policy and procedure for APD, for Civil Service Commission, and for AFR. And then they looked at all of that. And 2021 is, even though it was 2019 when Elijah McClain passed, it was in 2021 that the city entered into the consent decree. It was in 2022 that the Community Advisory Council was formed. And so 2022, 2023, it was just looking at all the policies and reforming all the policies and to make it to be what the standard is nationally, right? To make all the reforms. Then after that, they had to train all their officers to comply with the new policies. And then year 3, we are looking at, they were starting to evaluate how those policies were being implemented. And so the independent monitor started looking at specifically at every use of force and looking at each one of those to see if the policies that were changed and trained on were being felt and seen on the streets. And here's where we're at today, year 4, and I just wanted to, thank you, I just go to the last. So again, investigative faith, 2020-21, policy in training development, 22 and 23, and then we went to operational compliance, 23 and 2 through 25, and now this is where we're at today, compliance and continuous improvement, which is the present. Now, we are at the very end of the consent decree in which the independent monitor is phasing out, and now the city of Aurora is beginning to search, and maybe Councilmember Medina can give us a little more of an update on the Office of the Independent Monitor. I don't know exactly what it's going to be called. They have different names for it. We're going to actually have a department that's going to take over and continue to oversee our police, fire, and civil service commission. So, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So, because I was involved in when it started,
Mm-hmm.
and we had great concerns with the Harvey malls,
Mm-hmm.
and that there was no true matrix for how the Harvey malls came into being. And that was one of the great community concerns. And it doesn't appear that that has been taken into any consideration with Integrasure. And there are also community concerns that have been throughout the whole process. And early on, there were so-called surveys of community. None of us have ever received any of those surveys. So I don't know how, other than saying that $5 million, they have done $5 million worth of work without actual having community input in the consent decree. And so there has been, community voices have been left out.
So,
And there are other issues with the whole transparency of consent decree and the transparency of it.
so again, our role is to just bring concerns back and forth. But I can tell you this, for my own, in my own observation, the reason why I stepped in, because I was a deputy sheriff for 17 and a half years at Arapahoe County. That was my job. And so I was able to see how things were being done and what had happened with the Elijah McClain. And I wanted to step in as a citizen. I'm a pastor in the community, and that's why I stepped in, to look at all, be able to be a voice. And so yes, the Harvey balls were really, it was difficult for me to really understand how they work, because it is all such a technical language. But again, Integrasure, that's what they do. They go all over the place, and it's a very technical work that they're doing. And I really couldn't understand why some things were still yellow, why some things were still green. Lots of questions that I had. At the end of the day, the language is substantial compliance, right? And so what does that mean? Substantial compliance. That's all they have to do, is substantial compliance. And who determines what that is, and how does that do? But again, that's what lawyers and the courts, and they decide what substantial compliance looks like. And so at the end of the day, even though we don't understand all that stuff, the APD and AFR and the Civil Service Commission have completed what was required in most of the areas. And now they're ready to hand it over to the next person. In terms of community input, we have held town halls, we have had surveys that were sent out, and it's very difficult to try to reach out to as many people as possible. I've gone to homeowner associations, I've gone so many places, but again, we're 5 volunteers trying to do this work, right? That's what we do. But whoever wanted to come in and reach out, everybody that reached out to Community Advisory Council, we went ahead and we communicated that to the next people. I don't know how much time I have. I have one more question. Can I take it? Okay. Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the first slide, and there was 2 things on there, and then I'll wait for the end of the thing to bring that up. Okay, the second slide then.
Wait, the first, actually, this is the first slide.
This is the next one. Was there another one right after that?
This one?
There was another one?
This was it so far.
Well, the 2 points I wanted to bring up was on that slide, and now I can't see it.
Can you
Okay, maybe it was that.
can you articulate your question though?
And then it says reports, public, and whether reforms are taking hold. You know, so those three things, and I'm gonna wait till the end so that you can get all your presentation in. But yeah, I definitely take notes to that. I think it's a picture of it.
So yes, the consent decree had 7 specific areas. I'm going to try to go back. And so it had to do with policy and training. It had to do with the use of ketamine. It had to do with promotion. It had to do with use of force. I'm trying to think of all the different, because that were translated into 88 mandates. So it's really hard for me to keep track of all of those things. But, you know, officer training, accountability, community policing, use of force, transparency, training, and policy. So those were the areas that they were going to be looking at and changing. And they have, the first 2 years, the independent monitor looked at every single policy and brought it up to industry standards across the US. And so that's the first thing that they did. They changed all the policies that were not in compliance with, you know, best practices. And then the next phase was training all the officers. And then it was the operational integrity phase, which they were, you know, looking at use of forces. They were looking at every use of force to see if officers were doing what they were trained to do. And so that's the phase where we're at. We're just phasing out of that phase. And maybe I can go, if you go to the next slide, the next one. And so then you have fragmented policies, you know, and training. Everybody was doing things according to how they were taught. And even myself, I think every police department, I think it's important to talk about, you know, perception of the community. And, you know, we're never going to have a perfect police department. And what is the grid for you to say, okay, changes have been made or haven't been made? Because a lot of people will come to me and say, hey, Jeanette, I don't see any changes made. And I'm like, well, I can see it. We see the transparency portal today. I think that the work that APD has done, we have today the transparency portal. I don't think anybody in the nation has a transparency portal like APD has today. The policies and training that we have right now in place are the best practices in all the country. And, you know, is it perfect? No. And every time there is a shooting, we say, you know what, Jeanette, you know, we got another shooting. And every time there is a shooting, we think, okay, things have not worked. But that shouldn't be the measure of whether we have a good police department or a bad police department. Unfortunately, when there is an incident, if you are at your house and you are in danger, dial 911, and you are going to pray for 2 things. Number 1, that they come, and then when they come, they bring a gun, right? If some, you know, because they have to defend themselves, and they have to protect us, right? And so and unfortunately, things happen. People make decisions, and they have to respond accordingly. And so the mark of a good department or a bad department is not whether we have incidents where we have use of force incidents or even fatal incidents. What the goal should be of a good police department is that when those happen, number 1, there is transparency. Number 2, were policies followed? And number 3, is there a philosophy of continuous improvement, right? And so that should be the rubric. Any other questions?
Is there a conflict of interest if a city has its own consent decree rather than a outside entity like the Department of Justice?
So, because they hired an independent mentor, this was not a federal consent decree. It was just an agreement between the state and the city, you know, and the judge enforcing that. And so, yeah, because we had an independent monitor coming from a different state, coming in, serving as that, looking as the neutral party that is looking at everything and making sure that all the changes are happening. So,
Who pays that independent monitor?
the city was forced, mandated to pay for that.
Who mandated the city?
The judge did. This was a court-enforced agreement. So the Attorney General's office conducted an investigation. They decided, yeah, the community is right. We are going to file in court a complaint. The city then responded and voluntarily said, okay, we will tell us what to do. We are willing to make those changes, And so they hired an independent monitor to look at what the situation was and to tell them what those changes should be according to industry standards.
Was the judge a city of Aurora judge or was
No,
it the state of Colorado?
I believe it's 18th Judicial, right? Yeah.
So was the Supreme Court?
No, it was Arapahoe County. It's in the county, yeah.
Within the county? Okay. Has the Attorney General ever got involved?
Yeah, he was the one his office was the one that did the investigation because the community complained. And and so they took it on. They did their own independent investigation because the city of Aurora had ruled that no, everything was fine. We investigated and it looks good. The community was in uproar saying no, we want this investigated. So the Attorney General's office decided to run their own independent investigation, and they found that after they have looked at the incident and other complaints, that there was a pattern and practice, again, keywords, pattern and practice of people's rights being violated. And so that's why the city of Aurora entered into that agreement, the consent decree, in court with the judge. Yes?
Well, are we gonna kind of see an outline of what they've decided, like more mental health workers coming with officers or crash, a crash group that would go to an incident, or is there gonna be a schematic of what is?
No, that's not that. So, but you can go into the transparency portal and it'll show you what we have today is live data of all the things that we didn't have before. Yes, none of those things were mandated. They all came about as a result of the consent decree, but they were not, for example, like crime. Crime is not part of the consent decree. But then again, because of all of these things, they were all, you cannot address use of force without addressing crime, right? So all of those things are result of the consent decree, like the response for the mental health and things like that. But those were not mandated by the consent decree. They resulted as people were looking at best practices, how are other cities handling those things? And then they started implementing those things, making partnerships with hospitals and having first responders have the help of mental health professionals that will help with that. But none of that was mandated. That was all as we walked alongside, the independent monitor, APD and AFR, everybody's thinking, coming together, say, well, what if we try this? What if we try that? But again, no, they were not mandates. They were not part of the consent decree, but they came out as a result of the consent decree. Yes, sir.
So, when's the last time so that you say there's 5 volunteers that set up this commission? Am I correct? And there's still 5?
So we started with 15, and things have phased out. People start moving on, doing other things, and so we're down to like 5 that regularly continue from the very beginning. This is not exciting work. When in the very beginning, when the city was in uproar, we had a lot of people that wanted to do this. This involves a lot of work. You have to read a lot of documents. You have to go to a lot of meetings. You have to do a lot of work that you get zero money for. And so, it phases out after. It's really hard to get people to continue running 5 years later. Does that make sense? So.
My next question was, so when's the last time that Bill Weiser has been engaged with the group? When's the last time he's updated any of the information and the progress in what's happened and actually engaged
So the person that was assigned to us was Janet Drake. I speak to Janet Drake almost regularly, almost every month, and she has been Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every month, we have an all stakeholders consent decree meeting. All of us meet there. She is very involved. She has a team that, so I haven't spoken to him directly, but the person responsible is Janet Drake. She was with us at the last consent decree meeting, explaining to us, and because the Community Advisory Council had a lot of questions about the phasing out period, going into hiring a person that was going, that was going to be working for the city. We had all this. The Community Advisory Council had their own concerns.
Why was the hiring of the police chief not announced and put out to the public, and why wasn't the public?
We had those questions too.
hiring the police chief
The city of Aurora made those choices, and that,
privately, behind closed doors?
again, our role is to ask the questions, and we can't we're advisory. Wish we had some kind of, teeth to make people do things, but no, all we can do is say, we're concerned about this, we heard this concern, and for example, last meeting, we were concerned, the Community Advisory Council, again, we are neutral, but we asked Janet Drake to come to us and explain to us, okay, wait a minute, how is this person gonna be independent and is hired by the city, answers to the city manager? How, we had all these questions. What is going on here? How are you gonna, where's the money coming from? The city is on a $20+ million deficit. How are you gonna pay for this office? How is that gonna be sustained? I mean, we had all these questions because we've been running with this from the very beginning, right? So we are your eyes and your feet in this whole thing. So we had our own questions, and she said that she had, and what model were they gonna use, right? And of all the different models that are out there. And she explained to us that she had been traveling and she had been seeing, and she is actually, she felt that Aurora is on track for having a good independent monitor. What is the office called? Sorry, it's gonna be called the Office of Police Accountability or Law Enforcement Accountability, something like that. They're still trying to come up with what it's going to be called, and they're going to probably hire a lawyer that can look at things and and they do have the money that has been set aside from the very beginning. So all those, but we had those questions as well. We are a community just like you. We have those questions as well.
Did they always get answered?
Yeah. Yes. Again, we're very insistent. We're like, what about this? What about that? And Janet's very good. She goes, gets answers, comes back to us, and it's been a good work that has been done.
Do you see the final outcome of internal affairs investigation and also disciplinary actions? And are those records public? Are those records shared with the public online on the Access portal?
No. So for many, many reasons, police officers have the right to privacy, right? And just like you have the right to that your personal file be private, right? So they have their own rights. But I got to participate in the reviews of the use of force with the team. Not everybody got to. Some of us were selected to go in there, and I can tell you firsthand, and I saw how they looked and dissected. I think they like overkilled it. The process was so, in an effort to really be transparent, they would have every single department look at one incident, and it was taking months to go through an incident because it was just very involved. It would take a long time to go through an incident. So again, like when you're trying something new, you try it, you tweak it, and now it's at a point where they have sent it back down to first level supervisors to look at a use of force incident and be able to use it right then. And the good thing about that is that before, because it was so involved and it took so long to do that, it was so labor intensive that it was taking months, and by the time the officer got spoken about the incident, it's been 8-10 months. right? Now it's right away. They are within a week or so. I don't even know what it is now, but fairly quickly, hey, this incident, this is what we're seeing. That person is either counseled or, taken to internal affairs. Yeah, we got to see the people that were selected to be part of this. We got to see inside that. Yes.
So I got a problem with that because an average citizen's criminal record isn't private. I can pull that record and see it. I can pull the court proceeding records, what is it called, like transcriptions?
Yeah.
All that. I can get of any citizen. So you're telling me that a police officer has, I guess, a little bit above the law, and that they have their records are sealed? Is that
No,
what you're saying?
that's not what I'm saying. Once it's criminal, then it's a different deal. We're talking about on-the-job training. Have you ever made a mistake at work?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that gets documented, and those things. So we get this. This happened. This is how it was handled. This was the outcome.
But you're saying that's
Yes.
I can't
No, that is the person who did. There are certain things that by law, people have the right to privacy, and so I'm not an attorney. I cannot tell you what they can disclose, what they cannot. I got to go inside and look at actual footage of the use of force and what was happening. I got to see it all. There was a group of people that got to see it all in that very early implemental stages, right? You had to sign a bunch of releases and you had to, all that stuff. But, it's just the whole thing, we got to see it. And I can tell you that the APD we had then and the APD we have now are totally different departments. As someone who's lived in Aurora for the last 25 years, I am proud of the police department we have today. And the changes and how hard they have worked to really take it seriously and make the changes.
did you hear about that incident where the guard at the detention center right here, he was stepping on an inmate's arm and he's trying to bend it around the cage? It happened in December 2025.
I have not.
Look into that?
I did not look
It was
into
on the
that.
news. They showed the security camera.
Yeah, we were involved at that stage in the very beginning for a while. We were just gathering data for the first 2 years, right? As they were changing the policies and stuff like that. Since then, after that, it moved on to, which needed to, we were first looking at everything, and then it needed to be handed back down to them for them to, handle it. And the independent monitor is still looking at everything today. He still looks at everything. Yeah. I think so. Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
If you have other questions, just shoot them to me or I can talk a little later.
Thank you. Of course. Of course. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.